Hi everyone, today we are going to annotate Liz Lockheed's For My Grandmother Knitting. I've got a couple of things for you to do. First, if you just have a look at our starter task, and then we'll go on to learning intentions. If you could click onto the link and just listen to the song. Bear with me on this one. I know you might think it's a bit strange, but it'll really help it stick into your mind and help you start to think about the idea of growing old and what that means to other people. Okay. So today your learning intentions and success criteria are to understand and analyse the poem, and if you can summarise the poem and break down and examine each stanza, you'll have been successful, and to create an annotated copy of the poem. If you can formulate an annotated copy of the poem, then you'll have been successful with that. Make sure at the end of this video that you go back and you look at the learning intentions and success criteria again and just check that you think you've been successful, and think about any questions that you have for when coming back to class. So now I'm going to talk you through some of the context to the poem. If I were you, I'd probably turn my A3 sheet over and I would note this information down on the back so I can keep all my notes together. In this poem, Lockheed asks us to really consider the way the elderly are treated in our society and how the process of ageing changes our perceptions of different individuals. We all know how we think about old people. You might think differently from the person sitting next to you, but I imagine that there are a few stereotypes that we have in common. This poem is really about an old woman who knits, and it's quite simple in that sense, but it's the ordinary subject which makes it so personal and realistic and actually so moving. You really relate to the character of this old woman who feels very useless now after feeling so necessary for her whole life. So here are some key points to note. Remember, you can pause this at any time so that you can copy things down or revisit and rewind it. That's what I'm kind of hoping that you'll end up doing here, rather than me having to leave big pauses in the video. I'll just talk you through the key points to note, and I would suggest again you copy them down on the back of your sheet where you've copied down your first context notes. The poem is in chronological order, which mimics the events of her life in the transition to old age. There are 5 stanzas in unequal length. It's written in free verse and uses enjambment successfully throughout. This creates a natural flow in the language and allows us to fully appreciate the character of the grandmother for who she really is. There really is constant change between past and present in the poem, and it is signalled through the structure and through the word choice, but make sure you're looking out for that as we read. The main themes explored are memory, self-perception, the circle of life and ageing, as well as the conflict between family members, which I haven't put down there but you can add on because it's a key thing that Lockheed discusses in all of her poetry. To keep yourself right, I would use an annotation key similar to the one I've used. If you don't want to use the same colours, that's fine, but black for word choice, red for imagery and blue for structure is what I'll be using. Before you start annotating, make sure you've read the poem through once entirely. If you want to hear it out loud, there are really good examples of it online. If you just put into YouTube For My Grandmother Knitting, you'll find a really good version of it. I'll read through the stanza that we have on the screen, and remember, please feel free to pause as we're going through. So we have, at the beginning, we have, there is no need, they say, but the needles still move. The rhythms and the working of your hands as easily as if your hands were once again those sure and skillful hands of the fisher girl. So already we can see from there is no need, they say, that it introduces a separation and distance. The family really are united in the belief that the knitting is pointless, but she continues anyway, and that's really shown by that word choice of they. This "there is no need" comes back through. It's almost like a refrain, and it really reinforces the grandmother's increasing sense of uselessness. So every time you see that in the poem, make sure that's what you're thinking in your mind. It continues on, and that structure of starting a sentence with "but" really suggests the woman is a defiant lady. She does it anyway, she knits regardless. And the fact that the needles still move is introducing that first image. The needles are really full of life and they really want to continue work as the grandmother does. It really links the past and the present in the poem. The physical action of the needles is where this woman sees her release now, and she sees her sense of worth in society. If we move down and look at sure and skillful in terms of the word choice, the really positive connotations, it gives our sense of the grandmother's life and personality before the old age sets in. And then we've got some structural ideas down here with the flashback to the youth of the grandmother, and it really shows her contribution to society and reminds us that she wasn't always frail and old. And again, you're really seeing in there that contrast between this old frail lady and this young woman who had a job and had a life, and it creates a lot of sympathy for the woman, considering how useless she feels and how little she feels like she's able to contribute to society nowadays. So now we move on to stanza 2. You are old now, and your grasp of things is not so good, but, master of your moments then, deft and swift, you slipped the still tickling quick silver fish. Hard work it was too, of necessity. Okay, so this starts with a really strong matter-of-fact statement that brings us back to reality in the present day. You are old now. There's no escaping from that. The circle of life continues. People age. And your grasp of things is not so good. The image of that word grasp is really important here. It really suggests that our hands are less able, while figuratively suggesting that our mind too is less alert and she's becoming increasingly forgetful. We then have that but again, which is a strange way to start a sentence, I suppose, and it signals the change from past to present. Remember to always look out for that. We move on to the next lines where we have the word choice of deft and swift. Again, really positive word choice. It forces the reader to see her in a different light. She's not just the old infirm lady of the present who can't grasp onto things, who's old. We move on, and it's quite a tricky sentence to say. You slit the still tickling quick silver fish. And the assonance and the alliteration of the line, you slit the still tickling quick silver fish, helps to emphasise the dexterity of the grandmother's hands while she was young. Clearly hard work is... she's clearly hardworking, as is obvious from the challenging nature of the sentence. Remember, that was what the woman's job was. She was a fisher girl, which would mean she would work and got fish for a living. Stanza 3 starts with, but now they say there is no need, as the needles move and the working of your hands, once the hands of the bride with the hand span waist. Here, we again are using that but now, and that really rejects her, but the family, rejecting her knitting. Her family are rejecting her by saying that there's no need. It really creates a growing distance. She feels useless and the family can't understand that. They bring back that image as the needles move, and that symbol of the image of the needles again, or the symbol and the image of the needles again, reminds us of the vitality that she used to have, the quick movements that she was able to make, the fact that she was so able to contribute to society. And we go down to the bottom the middle of that stanza, and we see that the bride with the handspan waist, it links back to youth and reminds us of us as a young woman, very thin young woman, but as we'll learn as we read on that stanza, someone who was strong and able. Once the hands of the miner's wife who scrubbed his back in a tin bath by the coal fire, once the hands of the mother of 6 who made do and mended, scraped and slaved, slapped sometimes when necessary. So we continue on in that stanza, and the image of the hands is continuing to come back into our poem here. It really establishes that connection between past and present. Remember, the hands are what she uses to knit. The hands is what she's now using here, or what we're seeing here when she's caring for her family. If we look at that word scrubbed, it's an interesting use of word choice. It doesn't matter how tiny she is, she's really strong and robust. She can scrub her husband's back in a tin bath by the coal fire, again showing how necessary she was back then. If we look at that once, which comes in at the start of the stanza and the end of the stanza, you see here that this repetition highlights how these days are gone. It's a reminder of the grandmother's uselessness, and it creates quite a negative tone to the poem. We move on and we see scraped and slaved, slapped sometimes. So the writer's using sound again here. Lockheed's using sound, and in this term she's using sibilance to describe how she scraped and slaved and slapped sometimes, to really emphasise the day-to-day hardships endured by ordinary working class folk like ourselves. Necessary's coming back in now. We heard necessity, and now we've got necessary at the end of this stanza. It's about doing what you had to do to get by, and that's what that woman valued in her life. And now that she's no longer able to do that, she feels a bit lost. But now they say there is no need. The kids, they say, Grandma, have too much already. More than they can wear. Too many scarves and cardigans. Gran, you do too much. There's no necessity. So, but now they say there is no need comes back in. And remember, at the beginning of each of those stanzas there, we've got some sort of comment like that. This is the refrain that's coming back in. She really shows how little her family understand her. The need really isn't hers, isn't theirs. It's more about hers, and that's very clear in that word necessity. Really makes us reconsider our understanding of what that means, what is necessary. For her children, the idea of need is solely attached to their needs, what stuff they need, what they can get, rather than their mother's needs or the grandmother's needs. They really fail to see that she knits not just for them, but so that she feels she can still contribute, that her skills have not become obsolete, and that she's still relevant in society. At your window, you wave them goodbye Sunday, with your painful hands big on shrunken wrists, swollen, jointed, red, arthritic, old. So we're moving through this quite quickly now, and just even the words of painful hands and big on shrunken wrists really demonstrates the grandmother's increasing frailty. It's words that you associate with ageing and reminds us of the passage of time here. We also then have a list, or I suppose you could call them single adjective sentences if you wanted to. Swollen, jointed, red, arthritic and old. Really shocking words, and they force you as a reader to confront the cruelty of ageing. And I think that this is the part where the sympathy for this old woman comes in a lot more clearly to the poem. But the needles still move their rhythms in the working of your hands, easily, as if your hands remembered of their own accord the pattern, as if your hands had forgotten how to stop. So we come in here with that repetition of but again, and it's almost deliberately defiant. This woman seems to defy all of these ideas that are put to her about stopping the knitting because it's not necessary, and shows a real strength of character in her. If we look at easily being in its own line through the enjambment there, it really isolates that word easily, and it emphasises that despite her physical limitations, the skill she learns over a lifetime have not abandoned her. She's still a skilled woman. If we look at pattern, that creates a real sense of comfort and solace that the patterns and rhythms have provided to her grandmother over the years. The patterns of her life, the patterns of how she knits, and the patterns of how she used her hands. It really offers her something certain and constant in a world that is changing. Thank you for listening to the video, guys. What I would like you to do is, if you could possibly make sure that you write down any questions that you have, and if you make sure that you bring your annotated copy of the poem to class next day, because you will be working on it and you will need it, that would be fantastic. Thank you.